Hey everybody, Scott here for the Helix channel. It is Monday, and today I've been getting a lot of email questions lately. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I make this amp sound good? Some of these models aren't sounding great right out of the box. Well, that's just the nature of this kind of beast. They sounded good to somebody when they were programming them, but they're not going to sound good to everybody. So what we can do is learn to use the EQs. And I'm going to show you some of my favorite EQ tricks and tips. Not really tricks, but how I can make an amp that I didn't find terribly pleasant into one of my favorite amps. So, let's do that. Yeah, so what I've done today is I ran down the amps, and I settled on the PV Panama, which is the old PV 5150 amp model. And I don't know if you've ever played one of the original PV 5150s, but it was a fizzy, fuzzy mess. It didn't really have a lot of inherent balls or bottom end to it. It had a lot of fizzy high end and a lot of, mid-range that was kind of, frankly, unpleasant. I was in a band with a guy that had one, and God, I hated that amp. Jesus Christ. Yeah. The fucking day he bought a Marshall JCM 800, best day of everyone's life. So, but I wanted to see if I could make this amp into something that I could actually use. And I did that last night, and it is rock solid. So let's go over to the Helix, and I'm going to have to play while I, fiddle with knobs and stuff, because I can't go back and forth that many times. So I'm going to show you a very simple setup, and then I'm going to actually show you the presets that I made earlier, like yesterday. I've made a bunch of 5150s, one with two 5150s with IRs, two 5150s with cabs, another just a single 5150 with an IR and a cab, which is kind of the best of both worlds, if you ask me, because you can actually get the sort of realness that the IR delivers, but you can have control that the built-in cab delivers. So let's go over there. All right, here we have a very simple setup. Now the compressor over here, actually let me start at the front. I always turn on the, what do you call it, the gate, and I set it accordingly. I always have a studio compressor, or the other compressor, which one? The deluxe compressor, one of the two. But on this one, the studio compressor works, and I've got very simple settings on that. Now the amp, the Panama, the cab, a trusty 4x12 1960. I haven't done anything to either of them yet, and I'm going to play you a bit here. You're going to hear some pick noise just because I can't unplug in between all the clips. Now, if any of you have ever played a 5150, that's what they sounded like. Not great. And a couple of things right off the top. First thing I do, and this is just me, I always use a ribbon mic, and I like between 3 inches and 6 inches as far as distance. I don't like it closely mic'd. I'm going to roll off some low end. This is just my standard settings for all the cabs, really. And I like some early reflections because you get that kind of roomy sound. And, oops, there goes the pick. God damn it. And it sounds better already. We're losing some of the fizz, but let's return some of that by turning up the, it's not returning fizz so much, it's just giving you more of a brighter sound because of the room effect, which is what the early reflections delivers. And now, something I always do, just kill the fucking presence. It's annoying. And on this particular amp, I'm killing a lot of the low end lot of the mids, some of the treble, not all of it. The master on this one, I like it a little bit higher. The sag's fine. Hum, I like to think of the hum as a sort of a low-end filter pot, like a, built into an amp, some sort of adjustment you can make on the overall character of the low end and amount of it. Ripple, I think of that as the same thing, but for the highs. And on this particular one, the amp has too many highs. And the bias is the hotness, to me, of the type of tubes. I like to think of it as like the difference between say setting the bias here at 5 and setting it at like 5.8 is the difference, or 6 is the difference between like an AU7 and a A12AX7. So more gain. And we're turn the volume up a little. It's sounding better already. Now, let's see here. Next thing we can do. The resonance is an interesting thing, and on the back of the PV5150, there was a resonance control. I like it on this one around 5 because it just changes the size. Say you're running, and it's really for adjusting to, not for the combo version, but for the head version, because, if you run it into a 112, you want to crank up the resonance so it sounds like a bigger speaker. If you're running through 412, maybe turn the resonance down because you might have too much boominess. It was kind of like a size control almost. It was an interesting feature, and in certain cases it was great. Like if you're running through a 112 Thiel cabinet, crank up the resonance a little bit, you get more of just a bigger sound. It was great. But so I think I may have this thing dialed pretty much where I want it. I always dial back a bunch of low end because there's just too much. And that's not where the story ends for EQ for me. I like to add extra EQ from time to time, and you can add an EQ, say, in between the amp and the speaker, which is a great place to add an EQ. Whoops, don't do that. Let's grab a simple EQ. Now, if, say on this amp, we've got just too much bottom end, but if we take out too much in the actual amp block, it sort of, it kind of hurts the overall tone. And I've already pulled out a bunch of, mids on the amp, but the highs are kind of suffering a little bit. So. Okay, now here's my metal 5150. It's got a cab and an IR, and it is heavy as hell. The twin 5150s, and these are both cabs. All right, here's my favorite one, the twin 5150s IRs. It's got two separate different IRs on it, and this one, I'm going to unplug the microphone for this one so you can just hear the amp with this such special sauce. It's got chorus, tape delay, and some spring reverb. there you go, everybody. How I like to use the EQs to augment, oftentimes, and more often than not, honestly, with the Helix than with the G system. I was boosting EQ things because of, whatever amp I was using's inadequacies. I'm finding that with the Helix, I'm doing a lot more cutting than I am boosting, which actually is a really good thing, because the more things you add to a tone, it kind of gets a little unreal sounding, unnatural. The more things you take away, it kind of brings the whole tone into focus, I find. Those are just my thoughts, though. You might not believe anything, a single word I'm saying, but, that's cool. I'll be back tomorrow, and tomorrow I am starting the first preset bundle. And I'm going to do the early 80s rock. So from 1980 to 1983. And last week's, riff of the day, Say What You Will by Fastway, is a perfect example. It's going to be in the bundle. Other examples would be, Triumph, Zebra, our early 80s rock. Not really metal. Early Def Leppard, High and Dry era Def Leppard. Bands that really didn't consider themselves or really sound metal, that were just really great rock bands. Rush from 1980 to 83, to me, was a really great rock band, not really a metal band. So send me your suggestions. What would you like me to include in this bundle? Because it's going to be for sale in a week or two in its completed form. It's going to have, I haven't decided how many presets yet, somewhere between 10 and 20 presets. So send me your suggestions. Whichever ones, are repeated the most are the ones I'm going to use, along with, some of my own thoughts on the subject. And so we're going to get started tomorrow with that. So, sorry for being so long-winded, but I will see you tomorrow. And until then, rock on.